Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. In the flurry of leaders visiting war-hit Ukraine, this one's the biggest. U.S. President Joe Biden made a surprise visit to Ukraine today. Now, the visit has the capacity to change both the nature and the course of the war, and there's no overestimating its significance. U.S. President Joe Biden met his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelenskiy, in Kyiv. But when the duo stepped out into the streets, an air raid siren wailed, reminding one and all that the war is still raging on. The alarm was triggered by a Russian MiG fighter jet taking off in Belarus. A missile fired from the jet could have hit a target in Kyiv in under 20 minutes. The high-level visit into the war zone came under a cloak of intense secrecy. Biden slipped out of Washington in the darkness of the night without notice. The Air Force One took off before dawn on Sunday from Washington, D.C. The transatlantic flight was destined for Poland. After that, Biden crossed the border by train. After an arduous 10-hours-long journey, the 80-year-old president arrived in Kyiv. Biden undertook the trouble clearly to show his administration's unwavering support for Ukraine.
I got a handshake here too.
That is the most important.
And I'm here to show our unwavering support for the nation's independence, their sovereignty, and territorial integrity. And today, I hope we're going to have a chance to discuss how the United States and our allies, by keeping constant contact with our partners, can most effectively support you and your cause, Mr. President. And I look forward to discussing all of this and then addressing the world with you afterwards.
The much-needed assurance came days before the Ukraine war enters its second year. The symbolism of a sitting U.S. president visiting an active war zone for the sake of an ally seems more than enough to boost the morale of the Ukrainian people and soldiers. While in Kyiv, Biden promised to release another $500 million in military aid for Ukraine in the coming days.
We united the leading economies of the world to impose unprecedented costs that are squeezing Russia's economic lifelines. Together, we've committed nearly 700 tanks and thousands of armored vehicles, 1,000 artillery systems, more than 2 million rounds of artillery ammunition, more than 50 advanced launch rocket systems, anti-ship and air defense systems, all defend Ukraine, and that doesn't count the other $500 million we're announcing with you today and tomorrow. That's going to be coming your way, and that's just the United States in this piece.
Biden then left Kyiv for Poland. On Tuesday morning, he is expected to meet the Polish president. After the meet, Biden is expected to deliver a speech from the Warsaw Castle. Notably, Russian President Vladimir Putin will be speaking on the same day. It will be interesting to see how Putin reacts to the surprise visit. Will Russia consider the visit as a crossing of a red line? And will the war escalate to unimaginable proportions?
Every day we have prayers here. St. John Apostle was a servant.
Now, for more on this, we are being joined by our correspondent live from the ground, Anas Malik, as well as Peter Kuznick, who is the director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at American University. Welcome to you both. Thank you for being with us. Now, Anas, to you first. How is President Biden's visit being received in Ukraine?
Well, it's a major moral booster, Alison, for one very reason. This is the first visit by any president of the United States to Kyiv since 2008, the last being done by President George W. Bush in 2008, and since then a decade and a half has passed and no US president had visited. Then second, it comes in the times of a conflict that is currently ongoing. We heard those air raid sirens blaring and blasting across the country. I am here in the western side of Lviv, and we were doing our live when we heard those air raid sirens, and then it was confirmed that it was going all over the country. It's being taken with a major what we say is a success rate, because they say that the Ukrainians, the people of Ukraine believed that that is how much or that is the least that the US side owed it to them, for the reason that they are now in a war, and it looks like it is not. It is a never-ending war, a never-ending scenario. Therefore, they believe that this is the least that could have been done. When the announcement came from that President Biden would be visiting Poland, and now with this surprise visit, an announcement of new ammunitions and weaponry, or promises of new ammunitions and weaponry, this would definitely boost the morale of both the Ukrainian diplomacy and Ukrainian armed forces as well, that yes, they have a major superpower there to back them, not just in words but in practicality as well. Alison?
Absolutely, Anas. Peter, coming to you now. President Zelensky has called Joe Biden's visit the most important out of the state leaders so far. Would you agree with what my colleague Anas has said in terms of the morale boost that this will give to the troops?
Well, it definitely provides a morale boost, and it shows the ongoing United States commitment to Ukraine. But it comes at a crucial time. The Russians are making small, slow, steady advances on the battlefield. The reports keep coming out of the United States and Europe that support for additional weapons and aid to Ukraine is actually declining. Declining in the United States, declining in Europe. We've had more statements calling for negotiations and diplomacy coming out of leaders in Latin America, in Asia, in parts of Europe. So right now, Biden's trying to say we're in this for the long haul, but we're also sending a message that support from the United States might not be unlimited. We also are giving reports now that the Chinese are seriously considering providing military aid to Russia. So this visit comes at a crucial time because there's a lot of reasons why Ukrainian morale might be low at this moment.
Right, and Anas, coming to you now, how prepared is Ukraine for the possible upcoming spring offensive by Russia?
Well, they look like, or they would want to give a semblance of being prepared, and that is the reason they've been asking around and going around and telling the world that they need more and more weapons, more and more armory, more and more ammunition in their arsenal, and because as the snow melts in eastern parts of Ukraine, they're looking at a renewed offensive from Russia, and Kyiv would want to battle up or buckle up for a counter-offensive, for a spring counter-offensive, for a summer counter-offensive. That is the reason we're seeing that earlier last week as well, we heard from President Zelenskiy at the Munich Security Conference, where he was addressing virtually, he was asking for more and more weapons. A key takeaway from this meeting would be the fact that how President Zelensky has asked for long-range weapons, whether or not they're supplied, that could be a real game changer in case if at all Ukraine gets that. But lots of speculations there, lots of apprehensions there as well. But by and large, Ukraine would want to give a semblance that they are prepared and prepared enough for not just an offensive, but rather a counterattack. Alison?
Absolutely, Anas. And Peter, coming back to you, it's coming up to the year anniversary. We know that President Zelensky has spoken of the US being involved in peace, but obviously with the territorial integrity of Ukraine being maintained, what kind of peace is he hoping for?
So what Zelensky means by peace is really Ukraine getting back all the territory that Russia has taken. At the start of this war, Russia had maybe 7% of Ukrainian territory, and they upped that to over 20%. The Ukrainians have managed to claw back some of that. But now with this offensive, Russia might be able to gain more Ukrainian territory. The problem is that both sides right now are totally inflexible. Both sides want a battlefield victory. I talked to leaders on both sides, and they make it clear that they don't want to compromise. And so the rest of the world is going to have to put pressure. Lula in Brazil has called for a peace G20, modeled on the economic G20 from 2008 to deal with the world's economic crisis. He says we need a peace G20 to bring Russia and Ukraine to the negotiating table to stop this madness and this humanitarian catastrophe as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. We'll leave it there. Thank you both for joining us on the show and all the valued insights. WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.